Okay, boys and girls, I'm here once again with Sean of Blue Tech Mobile Detailing, and the question of the day is car polishing for beginners. Now, this subject alone literally overloads my circuit board because there's so many moving parts to this equation. You're a beginner, so this video is directed specifically at you are a beginner, whether you're beginning auto detailing as a profession, or you have a new car, a used car, and you want to attempt to polish your car with what's called a machine polisher of some kind. Because there's different types of machines, there's different quality of machines, different rotations or movements of machines, different pads, different polishes, different compounds, cleaner waxes, compounding polishes. I mean, it just literally makes my head or my brain go into this gelatinous mode and want to start oozing out my ears. So Sean is faced with a particular problem. He has a customer that wants some type of paint correction, paint enhancement. So let me start there. Because there is no standardization in this industry, meaning there's no rule book that has oversight by some governing body of professionals or experts that says, okay, this is what that means, this is what that means. It just doesn't exist. It's all over the board. So paint enhancement is what I call a lower form of paint correction. Paint enhancement is mostly temporary, as in you're going to enhance the paint temporarily for short-term results. Paint correction is more of a permanent basis. You're going to permanently reconfigure, change the paint surface so that it is a permanent level, more sustaining, more durable. So that's just to clarify that. So Sean, and this is where you, let's say you're a professional detailer, that's the conversation you have to have with your customer. Are you going to charge him accordingly? What is his understanding? What have you communicated to him? What have you educated to her as to their car, what they're looking for, what they're willing to pay for? So that in alone is probably like a 20-part series video. Yeah. So what I thought I would do is just say, okay, Tom, sorry, Sean.
That's okay.
Sean,
a lot.
Let's just take this specific moment. You've got a customer, he's got a dark colored Maserati. Yeah. He wants some paint enhancement / paint correction. Yeah. Now, you as a detailer, of course, you want to give him the most, but still walk away being profitable. Yeah. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. So as a beginner, there's always going to be this push as a rule to over deliver. The problem is you end up giving away your work to the customer. I get that. It's a very real and significant problem when you're a beginner. So I'm going to just simply show you what I would do and what I'm going to recommend to Sean that he does. So the starting rule is this, that you start with clean paint. Okay, what does clean mean in this moment? To me, knowing that I'm going to take a buffer and some polish to the paint, it means that clean simply means you've removed the superficial dirt, like dust, mud, grime, whatever. You've washed it some way, you remove that superficial dirt, and you have what's called decontaminated the paint using a clay bar or using some type of chemical like Iron X that will dissolve the ferrous, which is a glorified name for metal particles that embed into the paint. So the paint is basically clean and it's smooth. Okay, that's where you start. Secondly, as a beginner, I would pick a dual action random orbital polisher. Okay, random orbital, let me define that. That means that it will spin and it will also oscillate or vibrate. Officially, it vibrates and it spins simultaneously. But there's only one direct drive, which means that it will continue to vibrate despite putting pressure on it. But because it's random, that means that if you put enough pressure on it, this will stop spinning. Ideally, you want both to happen simultaneously as you're using the buffer. But when you put it up on an edge, because now you've concentrated that friction in a very specific line or on an edge, you will find that you can't put as much pressure on that edge because it will stop spinning, it will continue to vibrate, but it will stop spinning. So ideally you want it to do both, and that's where you have to finesse the moment so that you can be mindful of it doing both. So that's the difference between, let's say, a rotary polisher and a dual action. So dual action means that it's doing two movements, spinning and vibrating. A forced rotation dual action means that both movements, spinning and vibrating, are forced. They're gear driven. So even when you put pressure, they're going to continue to do both. I recommend for a beginner that you pick a quality dual action random orbital polisher. It's the easiest and safest to use in most ways, which I will clarify in a whole separate video series. So here I have the Rupes 21 millimeter. That means that the amount of throw, as in this movement here, it will throw that pad 21 millimeters. Notice that I have this in, excuse me, in the direct sunlight. So this is another area, which is the endless choices of polish and compounds. So once again, to simplify this, I'm just going to show Sean what I would do. I would pick a quality buffer. It could be a Griot's Garage Boss 21, could be a Rupes, could be a Flex. You decide whatever one you want. You have a Chemical Guys, what I call entry-level polisher.
A Torque.
It's a great starting tool to learn on, but it really lacks the power to do true permanent correction of your paint without consuming like obscene amounts of time, because time is money. So if you step up to the plate and you're willing to spend more, you will become more efficient and more effective. But you may not have the budget for that. So pick whatever polisher you want. Hold that for me. The next part of the equation possibly could be your choice in a compound or polish. Just so you know, I am not a fan of compounds. I think that literally every compound should be thrown in the trash. Compound, despite its ability to produce results, it also will produce unwanted consequences that you can't even see with your eye, which is a video for a whole nother time. So you will be likely overwhelmed by the endless choices of compounds and polishes. Just know the industry wants you to buy more of their stuff. So they will come up with multiple grades of compounds similar to like different grits of sandpaper. You start out with the most aggressive and you work your way down to a finer and finer and finer compound, which then you transition into a finer polish, and it just goes down from there. So at the end of the day, they would like you to have 4 different compounds, 4 different polishes. So in the spirit of what would Darren do, and in all transparency, I have now have skin in the game, meaning I have invested into this company. But the reason I invested in this company is because it is a truly unique product. So this is what Darren would do, is I'm gonna reach for the Ceramic X. It is a single product polish, which means I can go from a removable sanding mark, which is called wet sanding, color sanding. So sanding, literally using sandpaper to remove paint flaws, is the most aggressive form of paint correction that you can get. But you're not going to sand the paint surface and then call it quits. You've got to polish that to perfection, to what's called optical perfection, which means your eye cannot see any more imperfections. So this is a single product polish. It can handle anything that you throw at it that is truly correctable. So I can accomplish everything I need to, any type of paint, any type of condition, direct sunlight, hot paint. There truly is some unique chemistry behind this that you will not find in other products. And it's the only true polish that this company even sells. Yes, they have a polish enhancer, but that's to only enhance the polishing or paint correction that you've already done. So this will deliver high definition results. The polish enhancer will deliver 4K results. So this is a single polish that you can use. This is what Darren, this is what I consider my sure thing. And yes, unlike virtually every other product, it can be used on hot paint in direct sunlight. And I would put this temperature, I actually have a heat gun up there. So I've got my temperature gauge. Wow, see what that reading is?
Wow.
You call it out.
161 degrees.
161 degrees, 160, 160, 160, 161. That's smoking hot. Okay. So this pad is also a CSI pad. It is what's called a Euro foam pad. It is very firm. Once again, I could do 20 videos on just pad selection alone, but this is what I would do because it's very safe. It's going to actually, regardless of the polish that you pick, because this is firm without being too firm, it's going to produce permanent results. But it's also, you don't really have to be in fear mode of thinking that you're going to burn any edges just because of the pad itself. But remember, you always remain in control. You have speed settings, you have pressure, as in lots of pressure or no pressure. You have the duration, like how long do you sit and polish in a single spot? How much polish do you use? The type of pad. So you always have control. So that's the good news, but that's also the bad news because it overwhelms guys. I get it. So I have my polish. I actually don't have to shake this up because it doesn't separate. And if you smell it, you will smell nothing because it's not made with the traditional heavy solvents that most products are. Because, that's cool. Like if I was to pour this on hot paint with virtually most compounds or polishes, and just to clarify, this is not a compound. It is not formulated with diminishing abrasive technology. I'm going to show and essentially prove to the world how that is outdated technology. This is what's called controlled abrasives. So the abrasives in this polish, which is why I chose this for this video, it's why I recommend it to beginners as well as experienced professionals. It can work on any type of paint, cured, uncured, clear coated, doesn't matter, direct sunlight. So it truly is unique. Now, if I was to leave this, let's say it was another type of someone else's compound or polish, and I let that dry, not only would it become rock hard and I would not be able to get it off the paint, but it will actually, because the heavy solvents that are in those others, it will literally cause that paint to bubble up and it will permanently damage that paint. But because I know the chemistry behind this, I'm not worried about it. Now, since I just did that, I don't want to waste this. I'm actually going to season my pad with that polish. Now, there's this science called thixotropic, I think is what it's called. So this doesn't just dry up to a goo. What it does is it just seizes up. Thixotropic, meaning it goes from a viscous liquid form to a more solid gelatinous form without drying. Yes, eventually it will dry because it's waterborne technology. So water is the the carrier for the active ingredients. But that's what's cool is that it's not going to, A, it's not going to damage the paint, and B, it's not going to like create this cement rock-like hard residue that you literally have to chisel off. And because it's waterborne technology, one of the features of that is that I can literally clean it up with, wait for it, water. So it will come up very cleanly. So now I already have some polish on the middle of my pad. I'm going to use a little bit more polish. I have no idea how much is going to capture. Now, my rule is that you always start with the manufacturer's labels. Now, because this was originally packaged and formulated for the professional world, this can operate at every level, from the true concours d'elegance level on multi-million-dollar car restoration projects down to the DIYer, do-it-yourself, detailing at home, detailing for a beginner, call it whatever you want. So I always default to the manufacturer's directions, but that's not very comprehensive directions because the formulator accepted that it's going to be in the hands of people that already have a clue, but I get it, you're a beginner. So I'm going to put a few dollops on the pad. So now, once again, if you're fearful, you just respond, which means less speed, less pressure. My rule is that I'm going to dial up a dual action polisher all the way to the highest setting because I already accept the limitations of this compared to a rotary. I want as much bang for my buck, so I want maximum speed, but that's where you've got to decide what is workable for your world. Okay, first point. One, again, working in direct sunlight. Sean, did that look like there was any difficulty wiping that off?
No.
Zero. But what I want to do is I actually want to create some what's called gumming up. So I'm going to use, and this is one of the rules that I've learned from teaching endless guys, is that as beginners you tend to want to default to too much polish because you think more is always better. So I'm going to try to gum this up. Which is almost kind of hard to do. And I'm just going to let it dry there for a moment. So because once again, every polish, every compound is going to have characteristics that are truly unique to that polish. Never mind the pad and your buffer choice. So this, once again, I'm not worried about it in direct sunlight. It's not going to damage the paint. But let's say you happen to accidentally, inadvertently gum up an edge, whatever, because you use too much compound polish. If you are using this, once again, it is a polish. Even says so right there, polish, not a compound. You don't have to worry about it. And let's say that you rub it, you're like, oh, it's being difficult. Well, okay, maybe it is difficult. Spray some water on it and bam, you can clean it up that easily. So, because I just did this little test over this first test, let me go back in because I want to do this kind of before and after. Once again, remember, I'm working on paint that's 160 degrees. And to give you some context as to what that means, Sean, put your hand on that. Tell me how long you can, I'm going to count. 1, 2.
It's pretty warm.
It's hot.
Yeah.
So 1, 2. Ow!
Yeah, that hurts.
So at 3, that is burning my hand. That is hot paint. So I'm going to wipe this off. And by the way, just because this polish can work on such extreme conditions doesn't necessarily mean your pad choice can work under extreme conditions. Because if your pad gets hot enough, if it's a cheap pad, and eventually you apply enough heat to anything, it's going to collapse, break, melt, whatever. It will cause this to delaminate, which means that the backing Velcro hook and loop part of it will separate from the spongy foam part of it. It will also cause this pad to start kind of bubbling up. So once again, nothing is created equal. But this is why I have, over the course of my 30+ years of experience, chosen these particular products, this product in particular, these pads in particular, because they will perform. So here we are. So Sean, on a scale of 1 to 10, and let's just spray some more water on here to kind of clean up the surrounding areas. So can you discern a difference between here versus out there?
From this angle, yes.
Okay, so try to scrutinize it from this angle and see what you can see. I can hold the buffer.
Yeah.
Scrutinize it from whatever angle you want.
It's definitely an improvement.
Okay, so this is what I want to illustrate next, which is, okay, for one, your customer, based on what you know about your customer, would that be acceptable results?
Be above and beyond for him.
Above and beyond for him. Okay,
Yeah.
So one pad, one polish, one machine, and you could call that one pass,
Yeah.
even though it was multiple passes.
Right.
You only dealt with that section one time.
Yeah.
Officially, I dealt with it 3 because I was doing kind of funky testing. So that would be acceptable results. And
Yeah.
in my world, for 99% of your customers, or for you as a car owner, right there, you would be like, damn, hey honey, come check this out. Look what I did. I did this all by myself. So that would be great. But what I want to illustrate is this next point. With that said, you said that that would be above and beyond according to your customer.
Yeah.
I believe that would be above and beyond for most people.
Right.
But here is the mind F. What if I did what I did, which is very limited? That was pretty quick.
Yeah.
Would you say yes? Or?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I would too. I did not spend a long duration of time polishing this one area. So with that, I could probably do this whole car in probably an hour and a half, let's say.
Right.
But let's say I did that and you're looking like, I don't know, Darren, I barely can tell a difference. What would your conclusion be? Like, okay, let's say you were by yourself.
Yeah.
And now you had what I recommended. And
right.
now you're saying it's like, damn, that barely touched the paint.
Yeah.
Now what do I do? What would be your conclusion? Darren sucks, the polish sucks, the pad sucks? Well, it could be.
Well, I'll
pretend you don't know me.
Okay, well, if I just spend like only a few minutes on it, then obviously I'll spend more time on it.
Okay, that's a good conclusion.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is dig in deeper.
Yeah.
Why do you think we would need to spend more time on it? What's a moving, one of the components? So there's endless gears.
Yeah.
And there's endless cogs. If you don't know what a cog on a gear is, it's a little finger nib that forms the gear. So there's endless moving parts, endless cogs. So what would be the moving part on this? Well, this is a kind of a trick question.
You've already told me this. You told me.
Okay, well, what would it be?
You said that you're scratching to perfection.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you hang on one area too little, you spend more time on it, and eventually it's
right. But you know what the real component of that?
Tell me.
In this moment, because there's many components, meaning many gears. You've got the type of polish. You've got the type of compound.
Oh, it's the machine itself.
The type of machine, the type of pad. But what I want to clarify in this moment is that clear coat.
Oh, okay.
Not all clear coats are created equal.
Okay,
there actually are clear coats that are very, very hard. They're called ceramic clear coats. There are paints that are extremely hard. It's called Imron paint. If you don't know what Imron paint is, it's been around for decades. DuPont has mastered the Imron paint. They use it on fire engines, emergency response vehicles, and they use it on like big 18-wheeler tractors. It is like this paint on steroids. It is very difficult to work with. But that's what's cool about this polish is that it can perform on any type of paint. But what you need to understand as a beginner is that not all paint is created equal. Not all clear coat, which is what we're really dealing with, is not all created equal. So because this is so versatile, it can scale every part of the spectrum from your level of true beginner to absolute highest end performance. It can scale, but it can also scale as far as flexibility, as far as type of paint, weather conditions, clear coats, hard clears, soft clears, Imron paint, metallic, non-metallic. Okay, just to clarify, don't use this on matte finishes. Okay, that's the only limitation. But but really, polishing is to produce shine. If you have a matte finish car, chances are you chose matte finish because you don't want it shiny. So that's its only limitation. Don't use it on a matte finish. It's almost like common sense, but just in the event of. So let's say you see results that you're like, okay, that looks better, but how come it doesn't look better than it does? Well, that might be because you're working on some really hard clear coat, which means, that's why I say, you test, you pull back, you check your results and say, okay, maybe I need to go in for a second pass. Maybe I need to amp up the speed. Maybe I need to apply a little more polish. So that's the moving parts that only you can decide in the moment. But this is why I've chosen these, is because they represent the most of a sure thing in a topic that has so many moving parts to it. So my goal is to control as many of the parts that I can control, knowing that there's still parts that I can't control, like how hard or soft is the clear coat on this paint. I have no idea. And even if you think you know, you don't know until you know, as in that particular car. Okay, so why don't I do one more pass?
Yep.
So this pad already has some polish on it. And it's still a little wet or damp. So I applied about 6 more little pea size. Those aren't even pea size. And I'm just going to go in one more time. Whoa, okay, 185.
Wow.
So it does,
Yeah.
which I'm not surprised because I can feel it.
Is the friction of the pad?
Yes.
That's why? Okay.
So friction creates heat.
Yeah.
That probably is in the world of physics.
That's how fire was created, with friction.
Yeah, probably it was. You need some kind of heat source. Friction creates heat.
Yep.
So I just did that, another pass. So that's where you have to decide is like, okay, I'm not getting the results I want. And it's a tough balancing act because whether you're a car owner, how much time do you have on your hands, how dedicated you are to the process. If you're a detailer, how much are you charging the guy? How long is it going to take you to do that exact process repeated 150 times throughout the whole car? Secondly, which really isn't secondly, it's probably like 22ndly, different points that I've covered is this. Polishing is like sanding wood, as in there's abrasives in this polish. Those abrasives are scratching your way to perfection. It's putting fine, very controlled scratches into this paint so that it looks flawless. That's what we're trying to achieve in some cases. But there's a trade-off, which means this. If you accept that you are scratching some of that material away, so you are diminishing the thickness of that clear coat. That's a trade-off. The clear coat, and specifically the thickness of it, will largely determine how much UV inhibitors are in that paint. Once you go to a certain thinness, you diminish all UV inhibitors. And now you've just destroyed the paint. Even though it doesn't look destroyed, it may look perfect, but it's not going to last out in the real world because the sun's going to have its way with your paint, and now it's going to flake, blister, and peel off, and you've just destroyed the clear coat. So that's what you need to be mindful of, is that, and you need to explain to your customers like, hey, I can do that, but just accept that I can only polish your car so many times, whether it's me or another guy, because eventually the clear coat will become so thin that now it's worthless, and now it's actually going to fail. So I'll end on that note. There's so many other things I could cover. Always check the show more box below. There's always going to be links if you want to test and get some of these products for yourself. By all means, what I'd really love to see, well, first off, is a thumbs up on the video. Like literally right now. If you liked it, hover with your mouse and give it a thumbs up right now. Secondly, leave me a comment. Leave Sean a comment. If you're a beginner, just let me know. Darren, I'm a beginner. I have used a buffer maybe 5 times. This has been my biggest fear. This has been my biggest concern. Let me know what that is. And if you want to even go further, let me know if you learned something from this video. I don't care what it is. Let me know what one point that you learned from this video, the takeaway, your big takeaway or your little takeaway. Leave me those comments below. Sean can come in after the fact. He can relay the intel to me, and perhaps we can address it in a specific video moving forward. With that said, in 163,121 words or less, we will see you on the next video.